I'd like to call the order to order the Harris Township Board of Supervisors meeting for June 12th, 2023. Would you all please rise while we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Okay, next on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes of the meeting of May 8th, 2023 regular meeting.
Yes, sir. Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any discussion, additions, or subtractions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have number 3 for citizen comments. Members of the public are invited to comment on any item not on the agenda. 5 minutes per person, time limit, please. Comments related to specific items on the agenda should be deferred until that point in the meeting. Do I have anybody here for citizen comments? Seeing none, any online? I don't see any online.
Can I make some comment?
No, I'll get you next.
I'd like to take a minute to recognize one of our brother firefighters that passed away 2 weeks ago now, William Fisher. He was a 40-year member plus of the Boalsburg Fire Company. He actually was also, in the last few years, was part of our traffic control unit, and he was missed at the Boalsburg Fire Company. So I just want to honor him, and we're going to have another bench in his honor. His nickname, of course, as being the oldest member and the longest member, his name was Pappy. So the recognition of William Pappy Fisher. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we go to new agenda items. This is an item that recently was passed with Act 65, which requires the posting of agendas 24 hours before a meeting of the township website, and which only allows items to be added to an agenda after a vote of the Board of Supervisors. Is there anybody on the board that would like to add an agenda item at this point? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to township business. First up tonight is our CNET update. You're up.
Great. Terrific. Great to see everyone. My name is Cynthia Hahn. I'm the Executive Director of CNET, and I come to you once a year to give you your annual update on what we've been up to. Before I start, I just want to make mention of the fact that there's a gentleman in the room tonight that had an awful lot to do with getting CNET started, and that is Mr. Marshall. And I want to acknowledge that way 100 years ago or something, when CNET was just a dream, Mr. Marshall had a lot to do with getting it started. So I would like to acknowledge that. It was all black and white, too, wasn't it? Well, not that long ago, but awfully close. Awfully close.
Rabbit ears?
So yeah, 1987. So, next, please. Okay, so just some highlights of 2022. We produced 501 programs last year. We should have done one less to keep it even, but we did 501. And you know, we have a really small and mighty staff, 4 full-time employees and an additional 3 part-time employees who are all producers. The big news, I guess, really of last year was that there is a new cable company coming to town. They're certainly not a new company, but Chantel Communications, I believe they're based in West Virginia, has been actively pursuing cable franchise agreements with a lot of municipalities in the area. And so those negotiations proceeded and were finalized with State College Borough and Ferguson Township in 2022. So far in 2023, there have been franchises with Patton Township, College Township, and Harris Township, and we expect that their franchise with Bellefonte Borough will be completed before the end of this year. And so they're very actively pursuing franchises in the area, and so my guess would be that Chantel will actually begin to acquire customers, probably not before sometime during 2024. We also finalized an agreement with the university, and this is the first time this has happened, where they have an annual established minimum contribution to CNET. So prior to this agreement, they spent what they spent. So they were what's known as a pay-as-you-go member, and they paid per program. So the university was able to work out with us so that we have an agreed-upon set of money that they're going to contribute every year, which is good for us from a budgeting point of view. Next. Okay, Harris Township programming. So 13 supervisors meetings, 9 planning commission, 2 military history lectures, our coverage of Memorial Day in Boalsburg, and then the township sponsors the equivalent of 4 programs of Penn State meteorology programming. That brings your total of programs in 2022 to 29, with an additional 22 bulletin board messages, and we value those as 1/10 of a program, so that adds 2.2 programs for a grand total of 31.2. So you take those 31.2 programs, and that equates to 5.8% of all of the programming by all of the members last year. The previous year had been 5.4%, so that's really not very much difference. Your programming is really quite stable. This graph shows you the past 5 years. You will see that 2022 was the high point in the last 5 years of programming. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, but the reason the 5 years is important is our funding formula is based on a rolling average. So 2018 through 2022 is what we will use to figure your 2024 annual dues. And then, 2018 will drop out, and we'll look at 2019 through 2023 for the subsequent year. So that's how the funding formula works, and so that gives you a snapshot of the past 5 years. So if you look at that 5-year period of time, the township sponsored 5.78% of all the programming. It was a little bit lower than that in the previous 5-year period, but again, not much. And with that funding formula, we do that to some extent to protect you against having a year where you have to have lots of extra meetings so that you're not hit the very next year with a large increase to your dues. It's sort of a smoothing formula. Next. It's not, oh, there we go. So that's this picture, this graph is all of the members over the past 5 years. And you can see the big, tall, orange bar there on the right is State College Borough, who has been the largest user of our services from the beginning. And I believe Center County Government would be in second place. And then the school district and, College and Ferguson are kind of duking it out for the third place. So as a reminder, because the ways to watch always seem to be increasing, we have, of course, Channel 7 and Channel 98, and all of the Harris Township programming is on Channel 7. Your meetings are aired Wednesday at 9 a.m., Thursday at 5 a.m., Saturday at 4 a.m., and Sunday at 8 p.m. in the 6 days following a meeting. The Planning Commission meetings that we now cover follow that same schedule, but on different weeks, of course. The supervisors meetings are streamed live on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is CNET Center County. Our programs are online at cnet1.org. We leave them up for a minimum of 12 months, and we chapter those meetings by agenda item. So if someone is only interested, for example, in a budget discussion, they just go to the meeting, click on budget, and it takes them right to that place in the program. Very, very user-friendly. This is what I just talked about. So you can see the chapters there down the right-hand side to make it really, really easy to use the programming efficiently. We are on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire as well. And we have now created these lovely little video tutorials on our website that tell you exactly how to find our programming. If you have, for example, Roku or Amazon Fire, it can be a little difficult to find the programs on those types of platforms. So we created these step-by-step tutorials so that if people do not have cable or wish to watch it on Roku, they can find out exactly how to do that. So I looked at your programming. This is basically the data of the number of people who are watching your programs online. Please keep in mind, this is not cable TV. That is proprietary data that the cable companies will not furnished to us. So this is only the online views. So we looked at the period of January 22 through April of 23. On our website, cnet1.org, the Board of Supervisors had an average number of 69.5 views per meeting and another average of 40.5 on YouTube. So a combined average of about 109 views per meeting. For the Planning Commission, it's a little lower, 55.7 on our website and another 24 on YouTube. I wanted to just talk a little, it is a municipal election year, wanted to talk about something that we're very proud of. We produce candidate interviews every year for both the primary and general. We sent invitations to all the candidates on the ballot for federal, state, and county offices, as well as councils and boards of supervisors and school directors for our member municipalities and our member school districts. We do not conduct these interviews ourselves. We bring on volunteer professional journalists to conduct the interviews. This year we used Jeff Rushton with statecollege.com and Haley Kynes with the Center Daily Times, and they do a wonderful job, and we're really grateful for this important volunteer service. And the interviews are televised on cable and then, of course, also available to view online. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for coming and doing that. Does anybody have any questions?
Couple of questions. On the Chantel franchise, the Comcast one is pretty lucrative for us.
Yes.
Is there any projected data, say a year or two from now, as to how the Chantel franchise is going to financially assist us? Has that been talked about already?
Oh yeah. So the Chantel franchise, the capital contributions to CNET are structured differently than Comcast. And the reason that is right now, Chantel has 0 customers. So we had to do something with having no customer base. We had to do something to have some capital funding for CNET in a situation where there are no customers. So what happened was a formula was developed that every year until such time that there are enough customers that if they do that subscriber pay fee that they do with Comcast, that it will equal this amount, but Chantel will pay a block amount per money per municipality based on population. So for example, Ferguson and the borough, we are receiving $5,000 a year through the franchise, which with each of those municipalities. Patton Township, we're receiving $4,000 a year. College was $3,000 a year. Harris is $2,000 a year. And I believe Bellefonte Borough is $3,000 as well. Now at some point, and Chantel is paying that, at some point there will be enough customers, so if they put that subscriber pay fee on each customer's monthly bill, once they get enough customers that it equals that, for example, $5,000, it'll revert to that per subscriber pay fee.
So they need enough customers to generate $3,000
Right.
to sort of replace what they're kicking into the pot now.
Yep. And once that happens, it'll be just like the Comcast franchise. There'll be like 32 cents on everybody's cable bill every month. to fund CNET capital until such time Chantel is footing the whole bill.
Does that number then increase yearly basis? In terms of how do they keep track of the new customers after that break-even point?
Well, it's going to be on everybody's bill
Okay.
in this township. So everyone who subscribes to Chantel will start seeing that 32-cent bill.
What's their expected geographic coverage of Harris?
I do not know. I do not know. They're pretty aggressive. I will say that. But you know, like every cable company, they sort of want to go into the denser areas first, and they're reluctant to go into areas that are less dense.
Like the other company that did
Yeah.
that left.
Right.
They were into
Right,
the,
Windstream,
into
right.
the apartment complexes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is Chantel going to be in the borough?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to congratulate you on the change that occurred over this 20 years or however how long it is. It's amazing what you guys have done,
Yeah.
and you should be congratulated.
Well, thank you very much. This staff is really phenomenal. I mean, I've been really blessed, as you know, as any director will tell you of a nonprofit. I mean, really blessed with a wonderful staff and improvements in technology. And I have to say, you know, the franchises that we have are very good. They include some things that no one else in the country is getting. And so they're very good. And really, a lot of that is thanks to Amy Farkas, because she was very involved with those franchises and really looked those over, and a lot of that is due to her.
Better than they did.
Yes, she sure did. You're right. She could have gone to work for one of them.
Is that unique in Pennsylvania in terms of covering local government?
Oh, yes, I'll tell you, the reason it's unique, honestly, is because you'll find other PEG channels, of course, but most of them are going to serve one municipality. So you'll find a government channel for the city of Pittsburgh, and you'll find a government channel for the city of Philadelphia. What you don't find are these cooperative agreements where, you know, CNET has 16 organizations that we're serving. That is unheard of. I mean, people sort of look at me, their head goes sideways when I try to explain everybody is cooperatively funding us. And that just really doesn't happen in most places. So yes, we are unique.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and,
Thanks.
oh, wait, go on, I'm
No,
sorry.
I have one. I was looking at the list of 16 participants, and we've got the Water Authority, the Sewer Authority, the Park Authority. Any conversations with the Center Area Transportation Authority?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have presented to them. They have discussed it. My understanding is that they wanted to take a little bit of time to see if they can do it themselves less expensively.
Yeah, I mean, given all the things that are going on with the Transportation Authority, would be good to have.
Absolutely,
out there.
absolutely. Might be something that, I don't know who your representative is, but it might be worth discussing that with them. But that's where we are, is they wanted to see if they can find other technology to sort of try to not use us, to do it themselves. But we'll see if they come back to the table. I think it would be a really worthwhile service.
Thank you.
The Recycling Refuge Authority,
Yes,
it's on our agenda.
great, super. Please let me know and I'll come to present whenever you'd
I
like.
chair the authority now, so it's on
Yes.
the agenda.
Terrific. You just let me know, I'll be there.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda is the draft of the amendment Regional Growth Boundary and Sewer Service Area Implementation Agreement. So, Mr. May, I'm going to just turn that over to you and let you read the little intro and take it over. Unless you don't want to read the intro.
Thank you. I do not want to read the intro.
Okay,
I
well
will
then
just
go ahead and do what
introduce
you're gonna
you,
do.
if that's okay. Yeah, the Regional Growth Boundary and Sewer Service Area Implementation Agreement is the agreement that the municipalities use when there's a request for a rezoning outside of the growth boundary and sewer service area, or somebody wants to bring property inside the growth boundary sewer service area. We've updated this every 5 years since 2013, just to make sure that the regulatory stuff that we have in the agreement is up to snuff. and if we need to adjust things, we can do that. And just as a reminder, I wanted to, this evening, I want to receive any comments that you have. There's no action that's going to be required here. And then eventually this will go back to the Regional Planning Commission and the COG Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee, and then to the General Forum for approval. So I want to start by talking a little bit about the big picture and kind of why we're doing what we're doing here. And, you know, this region has for a long time had a policy of trying to direct growth into certain areas of the community. In the 1970s, that was a policy. It was never really implemented as an agreement like we have here. The first time this agreement was signed was in 2006. We've used it to help improve the availability and preservation of farmlands, preserve rural communities, utilize the infrastructure, the existing infrastructure, not only sewer, but you don't have to extend roads, public water, and other utilities outside of the growth boundary sewer service area. And we also wanted to protect source water and other environmental resources. And finally, it is a regional agreement and requires participation from the 6 municipalities. So where are we today in terms of the agreement? Most new building permits are issued inside the RGB and SSA. That's a function of this agreement as well as what's done at the local level in terms of your regulatory authority to zone outside the growth boundary and sewer service area. We also, in conjunction with this, every 5 years update our regional development capacity report, which tells us how much land development capacity there is inside the growth boundary sewer service area. So we know that there is enough capacity to serve forecast development for at least 20 years, and we do have that capacity. As we just finished that study very recently. Also, just to update you on the UAJ, they have over 10 million gallons of sewer capacity on a daily basis. They use about half of that right now in terms of their facility. We continue to use this to help protect farmland from incompatible development for some of the municipalities that rely on State College Borough Water Authority, State College Borough Water Authority, or have private wells. It protects them because there's other municipalities that are involved in this where there's wells, like Patton Township, and that allows you to participate in the process when it gets to the regional level. And as I mentioned the goals a little bit, but that's important because this is a combination of regional action and local goals as well. So an assessment of the agreement today, the process is really meant to be rigorous. So it is a pretty hard process to go through. There's a lot of information that we require of the applicant to move this forward. Number of questions they have to answer about why the growth boundary should be expanded and how we can, and why they need to do that. Another point I wanted to make, that the process does not require development of regional impact inside the growth boundary. Originally, it was required, but we removed that because that's where we want growth to go. So we don't require people to go through that process inside the growth boundary. I think everyone on this board has probably seen at least one request. There are a lot of newly elected officials that have not gone through this process because we haven't had one in a number of years. So we're going to do a better job of updating people on how this works. In your agenda packet, we did include one of the documents that we had prepared, which is the Regional Growth Boundary Sewer Service Area at a glance. We took that information out of the agreement and put it into a more readable format. We're continuing to maintain the Regional Growth Boundary and Sewer Service Area as one boundary. And then, as I mentioned before, it requires that all 6 municipalities vote on the requested expansion. So what stayed the same? The initial request is a local decision. So an applicant's going to come to you and request an expansion of the growth boundary or rezoning. If the municipality says, no, we're not interested in that, the process ends. If they want to move forward and you agree that they want to move forward as the local board, it will go up to the regional level and we'll start reviewing it at the regional planning agency. As I mentioned a couple times, everyone participates in this, and 5 municipalities are needed to approve a request to expand the growth boundary and sewer service area. In terms of the changes, we really haven't made anything substantial. We've cleaned up some of the language in the authority and effective date, moved some exceptions to the front end of the agreement so people understand that. We took the background section and put it in that document that I just mentioned. And then we deleted something called a limited review process and reauthorized an option that was in the agreement starting in 2013 that allowed municipalities to expand the growth boundary locally without going up to the general forum for projects that were up to 12 acres and 60 equivalent dwelling units in any 5-year period. So if that is enacted again in 2023, you can do that once until 2028, and then we'll reevaluate that. So in a nutshell, that's what I had. I'll take any comments, try to answer any questions, and then we'll move this forward.
Let's go around the horn in this. Nigel, do you want to start? Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Jim?
No, thanks.
Danny, do you have anything?
The only DRI in Harris was the Calvary complex, the shoreline out there.
Yes.
Is that line available to tap into if anyone wanted to? Or is that so isolated that it would be difficult to
I
do?
don't recall off the top of my head, but it's probably sized to serve future development, but people would have to go through the expansion process.
Because all of the businesses that have opened up there, including our maintenance, would be on public shore now.
Yeah, I don't, the Cavalry Churchyard and anything else up there is on that.
And all of those businesses on Discovery are all public shore? Okay.
They were inside the building.
So that area is pretty well taken care of.
Yeah, if Cavalry expands their campus, they'd have to have a request to expand because that was limited to their sanctuary building for the most part.
I thought they were doing an expansion.
Well, on that property, they could theoretically expand if they have more space to do so. They did, but that was part of the church building that Jim's referring to.
Okay, okay.
They're allowed to expand that as
Okay.
as part of the plan.
That was the point of the question, so.
Okay.
Bruce?
I'm good.
You good, Bud?
Couple questions. Are there any requests at this point from any municipalities to expand the growth boundary?
No.
None.
No formal request.
Okay. About how many acres undeveloped inside the regional growth boundary? Do you have acres or lots or?
Mark, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, I knew
Mark
you would
did
have the
report.
answer. So we're down to, there's 3,800
3,800, yes.
available acres.
Available acres that can serve around 11,000 dwelling units
Yes.
and 19 million square feet of non-residential square.
19, okay.
That's a lot.
Have we talked about that?
Okay, so the basic question is, do you see any need to expand our regional growth boundary at this time?
From a planning point of view, I don't see that. I mean, that something could come up, you know, any property owner that is contiguous to the boundary can request an expansion at any time. And so-
Because we may be subject to one, maybe two in the near future, but there's no need to, with the amount of undeveloped land inside, there's no real need to expand our regional growth boundary right now.
No.
Okay.
Certainly.
Good.
Is that it?
Yep.
Peter, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. This really gives the local jurisdictions the power to really plan
Yes.
for what's going to happen,
Right.
more than almost anything else, as far as I can see. They
That's
don't
right.
have to do anything if they don't feel that it's good for the municipality. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And the host municipality turns it down, or it's pretty much dead in the water, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it will not move forward.
Yes.
Okay, I just have one thing I would like, and I
Sure.
Huh?
Nothing?
No, what I would like to say is that the growth boundary and the sewer service, when they're tied together, it sometimes ties our hands, It's something that seems like it should be easy to do. We don't want to see the growth boundary doing these little bumps all over, so that we can accommodate something. But I think there's got to be something that maybe you guys could look at, that if we have a development, okay, and the majority of it is inside the growth boundary, and maybe 10% or whatever is outside the growth boundary, well, they've got to have they've got to have septic, and these guys can have sewer. Is there any way that we could say, okay, yeah, you can have sewer there without expanding the growth boundary. That's kind of what I'd like to see, is so that it makes sense if we have a development that only has a couple lots outside or 5 or so on this development, and we've got to have them in sewer, and we got to have the other ones on septic. It seems like it would be easier and better for the community to allow them all to have sewer if that's so desired. But I don't know, and again, I don't want to get into the thing where we're bumping the growth boundary every, time that we do that. I mean, I don't have a problem with sewer outside the growth boundary within limits, but I don't want to see the growth boundary get bigger. I like it where it's at.
Right, and, a couple of reasons they're together are, first off, we want to try to reserve higher density residential development or non-residential development to have public sewer. UAJ is limited on how much they can discharge into Spring Creek. So our thought process was, if you have an acre lot or 2 acre lot, you can have individual on-lot systems. If our code agency inspects those and requires pumping on a regular basis, so we've done a good job of that, and that was required in the previous Act 537 plan. So that reserves capacity. It doesn't, for those larger lots, they really don't need it. And the other thing is, we wanted to try to emphasize that the regional growth boundary is part of the comprehensive plan, and that's really what should drive growth, not the sewer. The sewer is part of the Act 537 planning process through UAJ. That's their process. But we wanted the townships and the municipalities to be thinking about growth and where you want, what type of growth in your township. So as an agency, we'd like to keep them together, but I will certainly take your comment and bring it forward to Land Use Committee.
2 comments.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
First of all, this change does permit a local government certain flexibility in terms of smaller.
That's 12 acres and 16.
And the other thing that I learned when we built our house in Harris, up on Banner Way, is the utilities can use a pressurized system. It doesn't have to be a gravity system to provide sewer service. So that combination does give a municipality more flexibility than it might have otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and that the ability to do a certain size project that doesn't have a regional impact that's what that was really,
Yeah.
Put in there for. So
The other part of the flexibility is the beneficial reuse program with respect to what we are currently producing, its distribution, and that frees up more capacity with discharge to Spring Creek.
Well,
Beneficial reuse is that 1.5 million a day?
they have,
There's 3.
there's 3
Capacity
million,
is 3?
there's 3 million permitted. They have capacity for 2 million, so, but I don't know
Okay.
how much they're treating on a regular basis. But the issue with Spring Creek is it's really the thermal load on the stream, because the temperature of the water has to be at a certain level. You have to do that, yes. So, the $6 million is where 6 million gallons is where they thought they'd reached that threshold. So, it doesn't, unless we have another place to put the beneficial reuse water at some point in the future, that will be,
It's pretty well reached its limit in Harris. It would have to go to other municipalities.
yeah, and UAJ has a lot of discharge capacity left in Spring Creek, so there's not an urgency to put beneficial reuse water somewhere else right now. So.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions for, yes, please step to the microphone and let us know your name.
I don't see what's the amended process.
As far as, I'll let,
Nothing changed.
What's the process for amending the agreement?
Yeah.
I'm just receiving input from the board tonight, and we're gonna go back to the COG, and then it will go up to general forum, and then it'll be amended at the general forum level.
Well, this is your 5-year review, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it says draft of the amended regional growth boundary.
We
I
have,
don't see that.
we're not changing the line, if that's what you're talking about. We're not changing the growth boundary line or service area line. We're amending the written language in the agreement, but not changing the boundary physically. Was that your question?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, but we are not expanding the growth boundary.
I think it's the original way that you described it. Because in order to change the regional growth boundary, the board has to approve it, and 5 of the 6 municipalities
Yeah.
of this center region need to approve it.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed,
That has not changed, no.
yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Jim? Well, Jim, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. I thought you were gonna be like on vacation playing golf somewhere, but.
Only in my dreams, so.
This is a vacation.
Okay, next on the agenda is MS4 update. Township Engineer Jared Northridge will be present to provide an update on the Township's MS4 program. Mr. Northridge will also discuss seeking permission to secure professional services related to Phasic Park grant. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip.
Good evening, and welcome to your once annual regulatory required update. Your water year ends June 30th, so we are 3 weeks ahead of the last day of getting you this update. As you're aware, this 5-year cycle, you have certain projects that were in your pollutant reduction plan that during this 5-year cycle, you were going to do these. It would lighten the load of sediment to the Chesapeake Bay, and this process has been ongoing for 3 to 4 years at this point. So we've kind of hit the point where the rubber hits the road. We're getting projects done. The first project I have listed here, Spring Creek Estates Stream Restoration. Yes, this is outside of Harris Township, but it's still Chesapeake Bay watershed. So this area, Fish and Wildlife Service did quite a bit of stream restoration work. Clearwater has purchased the adjoining property on the opposite shore from College Township. So we are still in the process of doing the paperwork, but this project is a real project. It's coming to fruition, and likely, Lord willing, we're coming in well under budget. So that first project that was in your PRP, that Spring Creek Estates, that, in my opinion, is going fairly well. We'll get through the paperwork here, and you'll have that buttoned up. The second project that I have listed here, the Willowbrook Basin retrofit, you had budgeted $50,000 next year to do infiltration testing, do a full survey of the contributory area, match this up to the modeling that was done by NTM Engineering, and ultimately procure all the easements and the maintenance plan to get this moving forward. So changing out the outlet structure, putting in better piping, riprap. This is kind of a wholesale changeover of the Willowbrook Phasic Park project. The good news here, that's a budgeted $50,000 expense. We've procured a $45,000 grant. You have a $5,000 match for that money. To do that survey, to do that infiltration testing, and to complete the modeling for submission to DEP, what I have here is option 1, NTM Engineering did all of this work during the pollutant reduction phase draft presentation. They detailed all these projects, they put all this information together. They are a firm locally that I would like to engage with, get pricing from, for them to see this through. It's something beyond College Township Engineering Department. So one option would be to solicit proposals directly from them for you to review and approve. Another option would be to go out for an RFP. My concerns there are that firms would be trying to recreate modeling that's already been accepted by DEP. So before I start asking people to put money and budgets and contracts together, I was looking for direction from the supervisors on how you would like to engage professional services to navigate through this $45,000 grant.
Oh, or at the end, you want us to do it now?
We can do it now.
All right. Any comments, or do I have a motion or anything that we give direction to Jerry here on this?
What's the,
Here, right here, A and B.
no, what's the recommended,
It's not on there. This is a discussion.
just discussion items?
Yeah.
It's a discussion item. At this point, you're not accepting a contract.
Right.
You're just
Giving him direction on where he's going.
some direction for what I'm doing in the next 6 weeks to try to keep everybody on schedule.
I make a motion to go option A.
Okay, so I have a motion for option A. Do I have any other second or any other comments on that? Because I don't know if we need a motion on this. We just need to give Jerry directions, right?
Well, we can't, it's not agenda to have a motion, so we can't
No,
do
we're
that.
just gonna give him direction on this.
Okay, go ahead.
The ultimate action would be
Go ahead.
Accepting any proposal from somebody.
Yeah, we can't make a motion, we can't vote it because it's not the agenda.
Let me ask this. Does anybody here have an objection to Jerry pursuing option A? Hearing none, go ahead. Your option A. Is that better?
Sounds good to me.
So the good news being that you have this $45,000 grant. The bad news being that the third project that you had earmarked to do was to do a project on the military museum grounds. One of the requirements for these projects is not just doing the construction, but then also maintaining it in perpetuity. And to maintain it in perpetuity, you need a maintenance plan of how you're going to manage this vegetation and buffer, as well as permanent easement access. And the military museum has declined giving permanent easement access. Now, they said they would back when we were doing the PRP, and they said they would for 2 years when we started this thing, and when the rubber hit the road, they declined. That means that they will not give the township perpetual rights to go in and maintain what you're paying to construct.
Perpetual rights being an easement,
Yes,
they won't give us an easement to use, go onto their property.
that's correct.
Now, does DEP agree with that?
DEP is requiring an easement.
And they can turn it down? They did?
Their Commonwealth Brethren has, yes.
Oh, okay.
What is Commonwealth Brethren Act?
So the museum is the Department of General Services. DEP is the Department of Environmental Protection, and DEP won't overrule their sister agency.
They go like this.
So yeah, they're saying, oh well, find another place. So
Did they give an explanation?
Tyler Gunn has not given an explanation. He said it's not something they can do.
Well, there are some strange things going on down there, there's no doubt about it, so we have to discuss that. We have a letter of complaint more or less into, I can't think what her name is, who is in charge of the museums in Pennsylvania. We've not heard back from her yet. We're upset about some of the things that they're trying to disengage themselves with the community, let's put it that way.
Okay.
So we're working on that. I don't know if this is that important or not. Would we need that? We can find a way around that.
My concern is that we have about 18 months to find a project to produce these 40,000 credits.
Okay.
And so, having worked for the Commonwealth and knowing the pace that they move,
We have 3 years.
I've begun to look at alternatives. If we can't get this thing from the military museum, where do we go?
Okay.
Penn State has done a project along the Duck Pond Channel, and they always had intention of sharing those credits with State College Borough and Ferguson Township.
It seems to me years, when this first came up with our engineer at the time, what's his name? Amy's boyfriend, what's his name?
Mr. Franson.
Franson. We signed an agreement with all municipalities that we would share projects that would count toward us and we would count toward them. Is that still in effect, or is
That's
that?
still in effect. So that's the very next potential that I have listed here.
Oh, okay, I should have read that probably,
Yeah,
right?
we're still working. So
Okay.
The Penn State Duck Pond project, Penn
Yes.
State believes they will have spare credits that they may be able to sell to Harris Township. They were already in preparations to share with Ferguson and the borough.
Oh,
So
okay, so that's still in effect.
we're working through that to see what they may have.
Okay.
We don't know if they would have the full 40,000 or if they would only have a partial amount. Right now, there is a project, Ford Stryker and Rob Cooper are trying to work with the Millbrook Marsh folks on doing stream restoration in Millbrook Marsh.
Yeah.
It's tied to the conversations include the boardwalk, they include the UAJ interceptor, but if that project would move forward, that may be a very real place to go get credits, and we're in
Yeah,
those conversations as well.
As I understand, by joining this agreement, it probably saved us several $100,000.
Yes,
It maybe $500,000 that
Yes.
the Harris Township would have had to join in on. Okay.
Was the stream restoration that was done in Cedar Run in the Shemp area, was that included in this?
that is not included in this, so that's
We
where.
get no points on that?
To this point, no, but if we go back and we start looking at where are the other projects that are going in? What does Aaron Latavich have? What does Clearwater have in the queue? What do these other agencies have out there that could be in the queue where somebody's already doing work under grants or funding
Yeah.
where we can partner and then, in my opinion, too often these agencies build a project and they walk away with zero maintenance. So Harris Township would come in as the maintenance, for lack of a better term, and twice a year do spot spraying, maybe do some spot mowing. But they would be the ones who would take on the long-term maintenance after these other agencies do the initial construction.
You mentioned Ford Stryker. Is he involved because of Todd Unlimited?
Yes.
Okay.
So the takeaway is that we are looking at other options, but as you hear of any projects in Harris Township or in the center region, certainly keep us informed. Kent Baker is keeping a very good list as part of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. So keep us in the loop as you hear of things, because if they're low-hanging fruit, it can solve a lot of win-wins across the board.
There needs to be some work done on Mackey's Run through the Linden Hall Village Park, 13 acre piece.
That might be too far away from our urbanized area. So remember that the MS4 program is focused on urbanized area, and they've made some fairly liberal concessions, but that might be asking too much.
Put it on your notepad.
It's on my list.
So I'm interested in pursuing the Millbrook Marsh options. I know you've been, in College Township's been donating some effort towards that already.
Correct.
And we're have an active program ongoing. So it seems like we can kind of double dip on that and help with the stream bank stabilization and stuff there and help with that boardwalk project and also meet our MS4 obligations. So
There's a lot of potential there for win-win. How it gets funded is going to matter because the state also has credit requirements that they have to come up with to match what PennDOT does with Impervious and other agencies. So where the state gives away grant money, the state also wants credits back. So we have to make sure that we don't step on ourselves as we do this.
Okay.
And I've been in conversations with Ford and Rob about how to structure those agreements so that hopefully,
Good.
if there's 3,000 feet of project and Harris needs 200, well, maybe they end at 2,800 feet and we do 200 feet and then you have your full 3,000, but ours is funded independently to avoid any grant strings from their side. So-
Well, there's stuff we need to do there, so we can double dip.
Yeah,
Let's,
What about our parking lot? Is that,
moving on. No,
would that be inclusive?
no, it would not.
Okay.
That's almost straight paving, so. We don't have any stormwater planned in that project at this point. So
We are trying for impervious soils.
impervious.
Impervious soil.
All right, so it sounds like, Jerry, that from what I'm hearing from everybody, I think either one of those projects we would be open to
Okay.
supporting. So I think that at this point, we're gonna just need your guidance to say, okay, here's one for you, or is there anything we can do to go find a project that we might consider here? Or is that something that we should leave in your realm?
A great deal of the MS4 program is raising awareness. So as you sit on any other committees or as you hear any other chatter of these projects, please let me know. Don't assume that I've heard of it from some other avenue. Shoot me a direct email or call me so that I know what you're thinking or what might be out there.
Okay. Does development of floodplains have anything to do with, involved in any of this?
Not particularly.
Okay, because we have some that have been recently added, changed. I don't know if that's probably not anything that we'd have to look at this.
At the end of the day, the biggest return on investment is looking for areas with hard erosion right on a stream bank and then correcting that so that instead of hard erosion and fast moving soils, you slow down the water and lay the stream bank back, so you have more vegetation and less undermining.
It's pretty much Spring Creek as far as we're concerned then.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, outside of that, the College Township continues doing your annual inspections every year. Everybody's been fairly responsive with, when we find any basins that need mitigation, getting in there, doing the mowing, doing any maintenance.
Good.
So we've had no significant issues, this past 12 months. And then, if you'll remember, prior to this permit cycle, when the Center Region put together their PRP, there's a fairly sizable expense and effort to put together that PRP in those projects. With your next renewal in 18 to 24 months, DEP has indicated that there is not a required update to that document.
Oh.
So, as we're doing our budgeting and as we're looking ahead, we're kind of keeping it between navigational beacons, but we're not looking at repeating that heavy lift. So that's what I have for you this evening. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer some.
Anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to ask? Yes, go ahead. You come on up to the microphone and give us your name.
Blue Spring Park. That stream there, that's a
Just come up to the microphone here, give us your name.
Be on
and-
TV.
You gotta give us your name and all that good stuff.
I'm already on social media too much. What about Blue Spring Park? That's a disaster over there. There's all trash in there all the time. It's
Trash?
kinda- oh my gosh, yeah. Beer cans, recycle bins. I've pulled out two over there. The erosion coming down from West Main Street into the stream there where that spring is, right next to that section could use a lot of love.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, I see that all the time, 3 times a day with my dog, and it's pathetic. There's a wooden skid or pallet laying in there. It looks like a dump, and it's pretty sad to see. Probably 70 yards back. There's been a long wooden extended, not one of the normal ones, but a long one that's been. I don't know if they used it to cross.
Sure it's
the
not
street.
that bridge that goes across there?
No, I know where that is. We walk over there all the time.
Yeah.
But that section, I mean, that whole section all the way to Bowl City could use some love. I know they've
Well,
cleaned up.
The Bowl State did some work over there, but
Yeah,
they got,
yeah.
but the issue is, I think there was some wetland mitigation has to be done, and they're working on it. I noticed that piece of property down here is, you couldn't play ball on it until about July.
No, since I
So,
was a
and that's
tot,
underwater,
yeah.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but that's, part of that is wetland hassle we have to work with, but I didn't realize there was other problems down there too.
Yeah, you just get, I think, runoff pools,
Yeah.
beer cans and stuff in there. So,
Oh, excuse me, sorry, could we have your name for the record?
I'm Josh Cohn. I'll be
Okay,
up here
thank
in
you.
3 seconds.
All right.
Your shirt gave you away.
All right, anybody else have anything for Jer? Jer, you have any questions you want, anything
No, but,
final?
thanks, Josh, and that's the type of feedback we're looking for.
Okay.
Because that gives us a spot to go check, we can review it, we can see what's involved in it, and see whether we have property owners willing to offer us those perpetual easements where we can, hopefully get in there, do some work, and then maintain it. Keep something
Thought about
nice
that
for
place.
the
Would
future.
that be water running from Yoder under West Main?
The spring there.
Is that where that
From Blue Spring.
Blue Spring,
Blue
okay.
Spring across from.
But
back in.
it originates on the Yoder part.
It's a spring. I don't know where it originated. Where do springs originate from?
You can look at maps of Yoder, and you can look at sinkhole maps, and you can see the old streams in the 30s and how they disappear. And then the box culvert we did a year or two ago, you can see how that gets water a couple times a year, and then the actual stream is drawn as the shoulder of the road. So when I had to do the permit for fish passage, and I'm looking at the shoulder of the road and not seeing any fish.
Oh, really? That's,
I smiled and I gave the government what they asked for, so they got their permit. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Okay, next on the agenda, the Iron Man update. I think we're getting the same gentleman again. Double duty.
How's it going? Do you guys have questions? I'm Josh Cohn with Iron Man, also local. I do the Memorial Day run the last couple years with Fisher and some of those guys, BBC. So I am here, I guess, representing Iron Man. We're getting ready to host here in Center and Clinton County the first The first year of the Ironman, half Ironman triathlon, starting at Bald Eagle State Park with a swim. They bike towards Lock Haven to Mill Hall, then they come up Jacksonville Road, eventually end up over on 64, come up and over Center Hall Mountain. There's a speed,
Up Center Hall.
up Center Hall from Pleasant Gap. There's a speed control zone where they have to stay under 25 to descend into Center Hall. And then they turn right on Brush Valley, or Church Brush, and then they make their way into Harris Township, past the winery, come down Brush to Linden, and make a couple right-hand turns, so they turn up towards the quarry on Bollesburg Road. As it stands right now, I have police patrolling the intersections, various intersections in Harris Township that require police assistance or managed assistance from fire police or some sort of enforcement. And so I'm just here. If you have any questions, we were at the State College meeting last week. If you have any questions pertaining to the event, and if I can help answer any of those questions or concerns that you guys have.
Let me say a couple things before we get started.
Yeah.
Okay, number one, you're paying for the police services.
Yes, sir.
You have a Harris Township special event permit, correct? And you're not closing the roads, they will be open the whole way through. They will just be bikers on the road having a bike.
Through Harris Township,
Yeah.
the only road closure we have will be the descent on Center Hall Mountain.
Okay.
It'll be restricted to local access, only going up Center Hall from Center Hall, also from Pleasant Gap. It'll be local access, but once you turn onto Brush, it's open. Riders are made aware of the open roads, and here about a week or so, we'll have several thousand traffic control plans or traffic plans, areas that are affected by the race. Mailers will go out to thousands of residents along the bike course or the run course. Run course is mainly on campus, pretty much on campus, the entire thing. And so residents that live along the course, whether it's Brush Valley or Bollesburg Road or 64, they will all get mailers with detailing the times and the locations that there's going to be traffic. In Harris Townships, it's about 4.5 hours thereabouts, from about, I would say about 9-ish till about 1:35. It'll be affected. There'll be people on those roads, the Brush Valley, and then heading up on Bollesburg Road. And so there will be also in various sections, we'll have the variable message boards go up. In Center Hall, also as you get towards State College and other more heavily trafficked areas.
All right, Danny, you have questions?
I've been raising most of the questions with this. I've finally found the map as you're going on the Brush Valley, Harris Township. I've got some concerns, particularly from the first of the turns going toward Rock Hill Road. That road is only wide enough for 1.5 vehicles. And if you're coming this way, can we expect the bikes to be over far enough that a vehicle can pass and come into Linden Hall?
Down, so the bikes are passing the school and the church.
I mean, they're going straight, they're coming
We'll
straight.
have cones coming down. We'll have cones coming down to keep the bikers to the right, and then the police officer or the traffic control will be there
At the
to
corner.
usher them to the right to stay on Brush Valley.
After they leave that ushered point, what's going to keep them on the one side of the, there's no painted yellow line in that road?
No, there's Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville Road has any painted line. But as a cyclist, you were to treat your race as if you're riding as a normal rider, and that you have to respect normal traffic flow that's coming through that area. It's specifically written in the instructions. If they're riding recklessly or on the other side, so like at that S turn, where the newer houses are, that will have line of sight cones to keep bikers on their side of the road so that they're not taking any shortcuts.
Those cones are not gonna allow enough space for a vehicle to go the other way. That's where I live.
Mhm.
There's a farmer that lives there that takes his, one tractor is big enough to take up the whole road. And there's a very good chance he may be out there that day. There's an 18-wheeler milk truck that is in that time zone that you're talking about. There could be some unhappy people out there, particularly the farmer, because I've dealt with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that my colleagues know who we're talking about, so.
Well, my only question would be, you know, people ride their bike on these roads all the time, so what do you do when somebody's riding their bike? I mean, how do you get by them and get two cars and all that when somebody's riding their bike down Brush Valley Road?
Very carefully.
Well,
There you go. There you go.
Having, how many bikes?
We're expecting about 2,600, 2,700.
Having 2,600 bikes riding Brush Valley Road.
Did I read somewhere that they have to maintain distance between each other and?
Yes, you can't drive.
Which on how you're going, is this a race or just a ride?
It's a race.
So you have to stay so far behind the guy in front of you or
Yeah,
something?
we have race officials out there that are penalizing
Yeah.
people for cheating.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with it, because those are my neighbors and my friends, and I don't think there's been any consideration given to them, Josh.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're sending out mailers here in a week that'll go to all the residents and give them the time that that area is affected by the event.
Well, the farming gentleman, his property fronts on the Linden Hall Oak Hall Road, and that's a back entry for him. So you're dealing with the farmer one road over. Someone's got to deal with it. It's not going to be on my shoulders.
Anything else, Denny? Okay,
I'm not pleased with it, so.
But you answered my question about the distance riding separately and keeping separate.
Yeah, we're not allowed to
yeah,
ride in a draft.
Yeah. And I will say that Van is here. The Bollesburg Fire Company Traffic Control will be doing that. Most of that at 4 different locations, I believe it is. And you are willing, and you're going to contribute to the fire company.
So, as with the any of the other EMS,
Whatever else is there. I don't know what
those
Van.
agencies,
Maybe Van would like to explain that to anybody.
they will
Okay.
they will be compensated.
Yep.
Well, all we've asked for from the agencies is that we have an estimated cost, which is not a definite cost, but a ballpark so we can plan accordingly. And then afterwards, if there's a change or required more man hours or somebody shows up to help out, then we'll compensate that. That's all we've asked. We do have what I think for some is some people have confused the Ironman Foundation grant. So if I have like the Y or the Boy Scouts willing to help out with parking or food, serving food, that those nonprofits can apply for an Ironman Foundation grant.
Good.
And then we would make a contribution to those Boy Scouts.
But the point is, we will be, I believe, 4 intersections, am I right, Van? 4 intersections? Only 2, I thought, okay, the 2 at Rock Hill and at Linden Hall, Brush Valley, yes, okay.
Yeah, we would have State College Police to helping control those intersections.
Okay.
All right, well, just want everybody to know, anybody in the audience have any questions? Go ahead, Van. Yeah. I see
I'm
where
Van
you-
Winter, Fire Company. Question I have is, I missed last month's meeting. Was there supervisor's approval for the conditional use of the fire police for this event?
I think we did, I think so.
There is a permit that was issued.
Yeah, but did
For
we
a special
approve the
event.
fire police?
That's different than the fire police.
Yeah, that's
I
different.
don't know if we did or not,
No,
I'll be quite honest.
I do not know that. Now, I
Who's
got
got
a
the
letter
minutes?
from the Iron Man probably 2 weeks ago that I turned in to the township front office here for them to bring up on this agenda so you could approve this.
I don't know. Mr. Manager,
He was
do we receive a letter from our man for having Bollesburg Fire Company?
Not that
So
I-
we need that.
I did.
You have it. I turned it into Bridget.
Oh, so you
on
have it?
Monday,
So,
2 weeks ago, roughly. Week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I turned in to Bridget.
we have a meeting before this
No, we
event?
don't. I don't think.
Wednesday.
Oh, we could do it Wednesday.
Oh, we can do it Wednesday. Okay, we'll research that. But you're
do-
right. Okay.
Yeah, put it on for
You
Wednesday.
gave it to Bridget?
I gave the paperwork to Bridget. Deb was off. Deb was off that day, and I gave the paperwork to Bridget that day, and had her ask.
Just
put that-
request
put that on
Manfred-
there.
yes,
It was,
okay.
it was submitted by the Ironman. It was sent to me instead of having it sent to you. I just did. They're requesting the fire police. So through that letter, it's the request for the fire police to be for that day, July 2nd. On it.
Brian,
Yes. Who's yelling?
we did not take action on it last month.
Okay, I just looked. I did
no.
not see it on there. Okay.
have a meeting Wednesday, you said?
Wednesday, we have a meeting Wednesday. All right. Just a comment on this before we move on. One thing to keep in mind, this is the first year we've done this. So if it does not go as smoothly as we're projecting, or there are issues when we look at doing it in another year, we might need to change the route somehow or do that. So that's something that we're going to be looking at after the event.
Yeah, I think it's definitely very important for the Ironman organization to work hand in hand with the community. We want it to be a positive experience for both. I'm really excited because I believe things like Grab the Grit, which is off-road, bringing several thousand people to the community that aren't ending up in the drunk tank at the hospital for over a pigskin being thrown around the football stadium. It's people that are, we want to help contribute to this community. I've had countless people reach out to me, people I don't know, people I do know that are excited, bringing energy. I think, post-COVID, it's cool to try to bring people together and work together and put an event like this on. It's really important, like I said, to Ironman and myself. I grew up here. I grew up just up the street on West Main. I live across the street now. I don't want it to bother a lot of people, but anything and everything you do, there's, something. But I think after this event, to look to the communities, each township, it's something like 12 townships and boroughs that we have to go through. And so reaching out and saying, hey, how did this go for you guys? What was the problem? How can we make this better? So that way it's a little bit less of a headache. For that, I have people that are irate at me because of the speed restriction zone coming down Center Hall, but I'm like, look, it's a safety issue. I can have people coming down 50 miles an hour down that, and we're trying to make it a safe environment, but it's a competitive environment. But we're trying to think, how can we make this fun, a good thing for the communities that it passes through. And I'm seeing people that are coming into town. Last week there was 50 people in town from this one group that were going and staying in hotels and going to the restaurants. And I am constantly online talking to people about the restaurants that we have here in my hometown. Yeah, breakfast places. You can go on our Facebook and you can see how I brag about them all the time. And so I'm hoping that it's a good thing. And 100% I want to come back here in a month or so, a couple months, and go, hey, recap, what can we do to be better next year and more considerate of the our townships that we pass through.
But did you process Frank's application yet?
Good luck. Yeah, if I'm not there, start without me.
Registration cost is.
Excuse me?
What's the registration cost to participate?
It depends on individuals start out about $350 to early registration. As it gets closer to race day, it's probably over $500 or so per individual. But when you see behind the scenes what all goes into it, they try to do a really good production, make it safe, and for everybody involved.
All right, sir, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda, Hurwitz Minor Subdivision Plan. Todd.
On May 19th of this year, staff received from Pentair Engineering a minor subdivision plan that proposes the creation of 2 lots from a lot of 5.801 acres at the intersection of Shemp Road and Earlystown Road. The lots will be 3.431 and 2.37 acres in area. Both will be served by on-lot water and sewer services. Proposed Lot 1 currently contains a house, while proposed Lot 2 would be vacant. If you look on the board behind you there, the plan on the left with the big pink line down through the middle is what those two lots would look like. One review of the plan has been completed, copies of which were included in the agenda, as well as a plan sheet. A small number of comments resulted from the review that should be able to be addressed in a timely fashion. Surety for the fire protection. I think I lost a page in my agenda here. Surety for fire protection would have to be provided. So staff's recommendation is to move to approve the Hurwitz minor subdivision plan contingent upon satisfactory completion of comments from the June 5, 2023 memo of the principal planner, the June 6, 2023 letter of the township engineer, the June 6, 2023 email of the Bollesburg fire chief, and the June 7, 2023 letter of the zoning officer.
Move to approve the Hurwitz minor subdivision plan as described in the agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Okay, any discussion on this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm glad to see the two drain fields are in and the septic fields are identified. I don't see an HOP for lot 2.
Yeah, our ordinance actually requires that access be on Shemp Road, be on our street, since it is a street of lesser classification than Earlestown Road, which is an arterial street. So at the time that they propose to put in the driveway, they'll have to get a road
Yeah,
occupancy.
because they don't have a lot of space there in that Shemp Road.
They've got a little over 100 feet, I think,
Yeah.
around 100 feet. The driveway just has to be 50 feet from the Earlestown Road intersection as a minimum. And I spoke to Pentair Engineering actually this morning about that.
So it'll be probably in the middle of that leg.
Yes, right, from the drawing I saw this morning, it'll be pretty much exactly in the middle.
And that would take the driveway over the proposed water well? You can't put a driveway on top of a well protection area, can you?
Well, I think the well is shown there for illustrative purposes of where it could go. That's not where it's been dug.
Okay.
So now certainly they can't put their driveway over the
Yeah,
well.
keep that in mind, you can't put a driveway over a drain, protected area.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, the only comment I have is, I do know there's a swimming pool there, I've seen it. And they have probably one of the nicest cedar storm doors you ever want to see that was built for them.
You didn't get that from them, did you, buddy?
Hey, by golly, once in a while I get out. Okay, hearing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next one, the Hurwitz subdivision component 1 planning module.
So this is a planning module for the plan that you just conditionally approved. As Todd mentioned during his presentation, these lots will both have on-lot septic and on-lot water. Staff has reviewed the planning module and has no outstanding comments, and the SEO has also approved and signed the module, so it's our recommendation that the board move to approve Resolution 2310, planning module for the Hurwitz subdivision, and refer to the Department of Environmental Protection for approval.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve resolution 2310 and refer to DEP for approval.
Do I have a second?
Yep.
I have a second. Any comments, questions for anybody? Pass that to Mark. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we can go to the Martin Hart minor subdivision plan.
On May 23rd of this year, staff received from Meese Associates a minor subdivision plan that proposes to adjust the rear lot lines of two properties that abut, one fronting South Atherton Street and one fronting Kennard Road. The plan would subtract a 100 by 35-foot portion of the rear of the 609 Kennard Road lot and add it to the rear of the 3740 South Atherton Street lot. Both properties are developed with houses. No other development is proposed with this plan. One review of this plan has been completed, copies of which were included with the agenda, as well as the plan sheet. The plan on the right behind you shows that plan. The purple area that's highlighted on that plan shows the area that's being removed from the lower lot and added to the upper lot on that plan. A small number of comments resulted from the review and should be able to be addressed in a timely fashion. Staff's recommendation is to move to approve the Martin Hart Minor subdivision plan contingent upon satisfactory completion of the comments from the June 5, 2023 memo of the principal planner, the June 6, 2023 email of the Boalsburg Fire Chief, and the June 6, 2023 letters of the Township Engineer and Zoning Officer.
I'll make that motion.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I guess I have a question.
Okay, I was gonna say, any questions?
Well, it's just, I will vote to pass this, but what we're doing, actually, Mr. Hart is giving some of his land to the house behind him. Is that what's happening here? So then the house that's on 322 will have more property.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
The general comment regarding the existing garage 609, the right side building setback, is that been solved, discussed, or what was that?
I discussed it with Kathy Henry from East Associates. A nonconformity, a certificate of nonconformity is not something that the township can require someone do. They can recommend it. They can, we regularly guide them through the process. If they choose not to take advantage of the benefits of a certificate of nonconformity, then that's certainly their choice. In my discussions with Kathy, we recommended that that take place. I think Kathy's is in the middle of exploring that to see what the property owners want to do. If they can find documentation that the garage existed prior to August of 1965, and that's when our first zoning ordinance went into effect that said anything useful, they'll have the opportunity to apply for a certificate of nonconformity. If they choose not to do that, it doesn't change anything.
Okay.
There are just certain protections when you have certificate of nonconformity that exist
Okay.
that don't.
Thanks,
exist when
Todd,
you don't.
that's okay.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next, are you guys doing this one, the zoning, or am I doing? Okay, go ahead.
This is a zoning ordinance amendment request. At their March and May meetings, the Planning Commission discussed a request from Pentair Engineering that had been referred by the Board of Supervisors to amend the zoning ordinance to allow certain grade level structures some relief from side and rear yard building setback requirements. During the discussions, it was suggested that perhaps the request should be expanded to include some structures that were minimally above grade, such as decks, in the amendment. Staff recommends placing the amendment in the use regulation section of Chapter 12 near the beginning of the section. 12-2.4A1D describes a similar building setback reduction for small accessory structures, storage sheds, firewood shelters, etc., that 144 square feet in area or smaller in any zoning district. Such buildings may be placed as close as 6 feet to the side and rear property lines. An amendment for grade level and near grade level structures to have a 50% reduction in the side and rear building setbacks is likely most appropriately added as E in the section, with wording the same as or similar to the draft amendment. Some discussion occurred at the Planning Commission on how to deal with decks and/or concrete aprons associated with swimming pools. Swimming pools and associated decks and concrete aprons are currently allowed to be as close as 20 feet to the rear property line in any zoning district, and that is less in every zoning district except the village zoning district and what the typical rear setback is. This draft regulation includes a statement that the additional reduction in building setbacks will not apply to swimming pools and their accessory decks and patios, in large part due to the safety concerns related to swimming pools generally. Our concern is that if you have an 8-foot side setback for a swimming pool and you reduce that to 4, this property owner has no control over what happens on structures or play sets or anything on the neighboring property. So maintaining that 8-foot side setback in a residential zoning district is just safer than allowing 4 feet. Staff's recommendation is that this is a discussion item. If the board endorses the draft ordinance or if minor changes are directed, staff can complete such and have a final draft ready for public hearing and possible adoption at the August, not the July like I wrote in the agenda, the August meeting. This ordinance amendment would have to go before CRPC before we could adopt it, and that won't occur prior to the July Board of Supervisors meeting.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay, how about some background on this? What brought this up, or what predicated this being brought up?
If you remember a few months ago,
I do, Jim, he was in here asking us.
yeah, John Sepp was in here asking for a particular client that wanted an outdoor sports court.
Oh.
Didn't want to have to place the outdoor sports court 100 feet away from a side property line in a rural zone.
100 feet.
100 feet.
Oh.
So through discussions, it was determined that perhaps an appropriate request for an ordinance amendment would be to reduce the side and rear building setbacks 50% of whatever the requirement was in any zoning district within the township. That person has since built a sports court, gotten a permit for a sports court at least, and is in compliance with the regulations of the ordinance. So that request is not currently valid anymore, but it's a legitimate request, obviously, because the board sent it to the planning commission. Planning commission endorsed the idea and recommended these regulations. And if you look at the yellow sheet, the section in red is really what we're talking about.
I wondered what that meant.
Yeah, so that's the change that the planning commission's recommending. If you like that, we can forward it on to, into adoptable form and schedule a public hearing in August. If you have some suggestions, we can incorporate those.
So you're saying this would, if we say a yes tonight, you would draft this, it would go to the CRPC?
Go
correct?
to,
Mark will take it to a future CRPC.
and then we'd have a public hearing
In August.
August.
Yes.
So we're talking about sections D and E here?
Yes, E and
E and
F.
F.
E and F,
See,
E and F.
yes.
well, I guess, it have to depend on a lot of planning commission. legal. I'm willing to move that under the public hearing, yes.
If you'd like to review the planning commission minutes on the website
Watch
between now and August.
Watch
Or watch it on
TV.
CNET or wherever, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess, can we make is that move to approve?
No,
So
so it's, we give direction to staff.
So okay, so this is simply we direct staff to forward this prepared for a public
Hold
hearing.
on a minute. Denny, do you have anything, or Nigel? anything?
On F.
On F.
Maybe you talked about this while I was reading it. The bottom sentence says, "This regulation shall not apply to swimming pools and their accessory patio decks." Can you give me some examples to what it does apply, or did you do that already?
Yeah, what it's meant to apply to is, in the example that in the request was an outdoor sports court that was basically grade level. The planning commission suggested that we have it apply also to things that are not quite grade level, but in this particular instance would not be higher than an average of 30 inches above grade. So some decks, it wouldn't be elevated decks, a second story deck or a raised ranch, something wouldn't apply to those. Just relatively low decks, patios, porches, sports courts, whatever somebody would propose.
Make it level.
How was the 30 inches determined? What is that a guesstimate of something?
No, it's not really. I mean, there was some discussion that, building permits come into play at a 24 or 30 inch limit, I think. So there was some discussion what that number should be, and the planning commission was satisfied with 30 inches.
Okay.
If they have to get a building permit in addition to a zoning permit, 30 inches, they do. But 30 inches is the highest on average that the planning commission felt comfortable with.
And they discussed this, so they're okay with that?
Right.
That 30 inch, okay. Okay.
Anybody else have anything? So I'm going to give Todd the okay to go ahead and proceed. Anybody have objections to that? No. Okay, Todd, go for it. All right, next on the agenda, code property maintenance update. Mr. Snyder.
Is he still here?
Yeah, you still here?
Still here.
Look at the, Jesus.
Good evening. Not too bad. So, last year, we initiated the start of the review of the regional property maintenance code. We went through quite a bit of advertised public comment period in the fall where we attempted to engage the citizens of the region, including rental owners, including students, including property owners, including property management companies. We had both
face-to-face meetings as well as opportunity for Zoom meetings to try and get public comment. The result of the public comment that we received from that engagement, as well as updates to the document, are what has been drafted and put in the document in front of you. I'm going to categorize the changes really into three main kind of groupings. Before I get into those, the first and foremost is going to be, notice the change in name. So we went from the Center Region Building Safety and Property Maintenance Code to the Center Region Rental Housing and Building Safety Code. That was done specifically based on comments over the years where renters as well as property owners couldn't find the document for rental housing. So we wanted to put that forward and truly put it forefront in front of the document, so that way it's very easy to find. Second grouping of changes, there's a number of changes in the document that are designed to just realign with the state code and the national standards. So for example, a number of changes in Chapter 7 were truly realigned. While it functionally doesn't change much, it makes sure that we don't trip over the state code or the national standards as we're doing this. In addition, reference standards were updated to properly reference those documents that we needed to do that with, including, for example, the 2018 Fire Code, which is what the state code references right now as well. So we're trying to make sure we stay current there. The next grouping of changes that are in here, I'm going to point your attention to Chapter 11. So Public Safety Committee at the COG has gotten quite a bit of feedback over the course of the last 2 years regarding false alarms. And those false alarms were not just fire, but they're also police, and as well as EMS to the lesser extent, but we still see false alarms there as well. So Public Safety requested that the Center Region Code Administration look at what can we do to possibly alleviate the false alarm problem and work with the false alarm problem. And that was really a counter to potentially looking at billing for services for false alarms. So we looked back at what was in place regionally for alarm ordinances, which in some cases date back to the early 1990s. And Chapter 11 is basically bringing those alarm ordinances that were in various pieces regionally into the code document. So again, they're easy to find, easy to reference, and the Center Region Code Administration will be administering those if you choose to participate. We have worked with Chief Gardner from Police, and they're on board both for State College Borough, College Township, as well as supported for Harris Township from the police side. Also, Chief Winter was contacted and I've worked with him, indicating that this was going to be coming forward to the board as well. The last grouping of changes that are in the document really revolve around rental housing, notification, rental housing rights for tenants, and working with those types of notifications. Those are also in the document. I point you to 101.6, which is on page 1 of the numbered pages. And that is a section that we have been working with local tenant and owner groups to be able to look at some rights where we've got landlords who have arbitrarily, taken advantage of tenants, and so requested information be put in the document. There's also some changes in Chapter 8 regarding tenant notification. One that I want to point your attention to in Chapter 8, again, I don't want to get into every little line, but I'm happy to answer questions, is in Chapter 8, there is notification requirements with regards to energy. We have gotten, over the years, a whole lot of complaints, and more recently than in the past regarding somebody renting an apartment and they don't have the full cost of rental prior to signing the lease. So an example is I rent the house from you, it's electric heat. I'm required based on the code to maintain the heat at a certain level. So as a landlord, you want me to maintain it there so that your pipes don't freeze and so on. But I also don't realize that while I rent the house from you for, let's say, $2,500 a month, that it's going to cost me $800 or $900 a month to pay the electric bill in the winter to maintain the heat at the level it's supposed to be at. The section that I'm referring to would require that the property owner, if the tenants have to pay the utilities, the property owner would be required to give the proposed or the possible tenant 2 years of utility information prior to signing the lease. So they would have an idea what it's the full cost to rental. It also requires that the tenant give the landlord that information back within 60 days of actually paying the bill, because if not, you can't get access to the information. We've checked with West Penn, for example, and West Penn will tell whoever's on the account how much the utility bills were, but they won't tell the property owner. So it's a give or take. We realize in the first 2 years of this that we are going to need to work with property owners and managers to be able to get that information, and same thing, work with tenants to start getting them to get that information. But we feel that it's important so that we don't have folks that are feeling that they can't afford to live in a certain location based on suddenly, you sign a lease in August and all of a sudden in December you find you can't afford to live there. So that's a piece to try and get that information in hand so they can make decisions ahead of time. But I'd be happy to answer any questions whatsoever.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Okay.
Okay, number one, it's going to raise the price. It's going to be expensive to do. And if somebody doesn't do it, what are you going to do?
The idea is we're going to be working with
What are
them
you going
to
to
try
do?
and get.
What would you do if a tenant doesn't report back with how much electricity they've used?
Quite honestly,
if they leave town, they're gone.
Well, if they leave town and they're gone, there's nothing I can do.
Right. So
I
it's
can't
not,
chase.
So this has no teeth in it at all whatsoever. It came from a technical advisory group from the Climate Action Committee. One person from Penn State thought this would be a great idea, but when you start analyzing it, it doesn't. Well, there'll be more discussion on this, I'm sure. I'm sure I'll hear a lot of discussion on this. And I don't see how, if somebody is renting a house or renting an apartment, now in single-family homes, they probably care before they move in. Of the 28,000 apartment buildings that are in town, no, not that many, 20,000, 2,000, 20,000.
As far as the apartments in town?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So right now in the region, there's about 21,000 rental units.
The students move in there, they aren't care less, they could care less.
Well, and keep in mind, a great deal of those rental units, the landlord pays the electric bill and pays all the utilities.
No, well, maybe not. That's not a rule.
No, it's not a rule, but
So,
based on our
it's going to be
experience.
it's going to be something that, how are you going to enforce it? What are you going to do if they don't? I mean, it'd be great to know. There's 5 kids moving in an apartment, 3 kids. They could care less. They're going to divide that up. So, but they're still going to be required to do this. Every apartment in town, they have to go to West Penn. The property management people or whoever owns that property, go to West Penn, give me 3 months of whatever it is, so I can give it to these kids before they move to the apartment. Of 20,000, West Penn's going to do that?
As what I said, West Penn will not give the owner of the property the value anyway.
Right.
So what it is they're going to have to get the information from the tenants. And this code requires that they get the information
And
also.
if they don't?
And if they don't, then obviously we'd work with the tenants to try and get the information.
They're going to be gone.
Landlord.
They're going to be gone for 3 years.
If they're gone,
2
then
years.
there's nothing we can do about it.
There you go. Well, there'll be more discussion on it. I knew this was coming. I saw this on the minutes of the technical advisory group from the Climate Action Committee, and I thought, well, one person ought to come up with this idea, and it get blown out. There may be some reasons. Maybe some instances it would be good to know if we're single-family dwelling or something like this, but generally that is not one of the questions that people are concerned when renting, when professional people are renting houses or they're not. It doesn't seem to be one of the questions. I mean, they'd probably like to know how much water they use too. What if they use too much water? What if they use too much everything? So that struck me as just plain, I don't know, out in left field somewhere. Now, I'm sure we'll have more discussion on before it's all over.
Denny?
Following on Bud's comment and your comment about the electricity, do tenants pay sewer and water, or is that typically included in a?
Typically, it's included because the
Because they're tied
authorities,
together.
well, not only that, but the authorities require that to be in the property owner's name.
You can lean.
You can
sewer
lean,
water.
yes, but typically
Not
also, the water authority won't put the water bill in a tenant's name. They require it to be
I
in the
can see
property.
why,
Goes
yeah.
to the owner.
That
Water
makes-
goes
Correct, that's
to the
it.
owner.
That's what makes sense.
Correct, so it stays in the property owner's name.
But then the property owner can pass that on to the tenant.
But again, they have that data, correct?
What about trash? How's that handled?
Same thing, usually it's based on our experience and based on our knowledge, all of those, it's usually gas, oil, and electric are the ones that, at least in our research, have predominantly been directly transferred to the tenant and don't remain in the property owner's name.
Well, go ahead. Well, my only comment about that is it's gonna cost somebody some money, and guess who it's gonna cost? Tenants.
Well, here's the thing, and it's not just with this, it just seems like as a society, we don't know how to do due diligence anymore. I don't think I ever, when I was single, in college, in the Navy, anywhere, ever rented a place without knowing how much everything was gonna cost. If somebody comes in and says, I want the apartment, and then they realize they gotta pay, it's called due diligence, do your homework. And now we're gonna put a code in to say, well, if you don't do your homework, we'll take care of it. I kinda agree with Bob, I don't think that has to be in there.
And it's the option of the board if you choose to.
I don't think it's gonna, well, that was a question I had, the other question I had was, the last time we did this, I think we had on what we wanted and what we passed with you.
Correct.
We got rid of a lot of the student stuff because we didn't have a lot of student housing in Harris Township. If we come back now and approve this document here, this ordinance change, does that mean all that stuff comes back in, or do we
No.
stay the way we were?
If you notice in the draft ordinance that the manager and I put together, the
We
historically.
don't have a manager. Oh, we have an interim, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the exceptions we have are still in there.
Correct.
Yes, that's what I wanna make sure of.
So,
The fire escape, the roof ceiling.
correct.
Oh, what about the burn ordinance?
Burn ordinance is still based on this
Our
documentation.
burn ordinance.
The burn requirements in the property maintenance code are still exempted based on
In Harris Township.
in Harris Township.
I think those are the three things. Yes.
And the furniture out in the lawn.
Oh, we're allowed that?
I believe last time, if you look at that, it has the interior furniture
Well,
outside.
I probably made a comment, I'm not quite sure. I probably made a comment about that, but I don't know why.
I think you had made a comment last time about wanting to be able to put your furniture outside when you wanted to.
I probably did.
So-
That's still on the deck issue. We sort of talked about it under the fire safety issue, is it?
When we talked about
Right,
it on.
Ben?
Yes.
We talked about that. Okay.
Well, I understand behind it. We had a fire on Beaver Avenue.
Well, the other problem that's happened is the potential for they get left outside for a long period of time, and then when they bring them in, they bring rodents with them because something's decided to live in them. Because they're not outside for an hour, they're outside for.
I know the one issue was an outside sofa on the back porch, and it kind of caught fire.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Relative to what you were talking about previously. I understand where having that information as a renter would be very helpful. And I understand what Bud is saying in terms of whether you could get the information. But with how many 20,000 units, how would you manage that in terms of getting that information? How would you do that?
Again, from our standpoint, most of the units in the region, based on what we know, the owners are paying the electric bill and it's buried into the rent.
Oh,
So
there's
most
not
of,
much.
most of the high rises and so on are not individually metered.
Okay.
And so on. So, and I'll be honest, that's also done for some other reasons in the fact that if you group meter, you buy then your electricity at a much better rate than individual units. So where this really hits home is single-family homes and townhomes, where they're transferring the cost of utilities over to the renter directly.
Another point is, why is that a code violation? Why is that a code issue? It's not a
So-
safety, fire, what is it?
I understand. The property maintenance code has become the home for a whole lot of different issues. And we are the administrators. When we put the document together, our goal is to be able to get the interested parties and you as the elected officials make decisions based on what you want in your municipality.
Building safety, why is that building safety?
It's not.
It's not. I don't believe
But-
it believes in, I do
but it
not believe
does
it believes
fall.
in our code, in our building safety manual.
But it does fall under under the rental housing side.
Well, it doesn't matter. I just think it's something that's
will not be forced in about 3 months or 6 months. You will forget all about that. Well, let's go.
Okay,
let's
I have
go
one
now.
other, I have one
Yeah.
other thing too.
Oh, go, but I don't want to debate this whole thing tonight. I want to find out what we got to do. So what's your other thing?
Well, I have another thing too, that why is there a section here on leases? Leases are not a property maintenance problem. They're also not a public safety thing, but there's a whole section on leases. How a student can, what termination of lease and on and on and on. Seems to me that's not a building safety thing either. That shouldn't even be in our safety code. If we want to have a rule or a law about certain things, let's do that. But when you have a safety code or license, why do we have a long section here of how you terminate a lease, when you call for a lease, how many seconds, how many days you have ahead of time? It goes on and on. Those are all by law and they're by court. That's a legislative thing. That's not a rental safety thing, a rental safety, public safety thing.
As I had indicated, we took a level of public comment. One of the groups cohesively, there were more than one person, but there were a number of groups all around basically tenants' rights and feel that the tenants have been taken advantage of. And so part of the changes that went into this document are recommendations based on public comment for tenants' rights information. That's tenants' rights information that has been proposed
How's that
to
a
be
public
put
safety thing?
into, again, this is not just public safety, it's rental
Well, it
housing.
should be. It says public safety on there.
Well, it also
If we, those are all legal lease. Those things are all in your lease. Every lease has those written in there. If they read the lease, they sign the lease. Everything I read in there is in a lease. So I don't know why it has to be in a public safety, why code, what would code do? If someone says, well, I notified my tenant, I was supposed to give him 30-day notice, he only gave me 29, what are you gonna do?
Again, the possibility is if it's a violation of the code, we can follow the requirements
And
that
that,
are a
he's already
violation of the
gonna,
code.
he's already gonna take it to court. This will go to court. I don't know what public safety has to do with it.
Peter, you had something?
You have something?
Yeah, I'm not commenting on that.
Oh.
Oh, I thought you were.
dang.
I assume that it's more than public safety. But just to give you an idea how this got where it is, there was a mob of people, a group of people who consistently came to the State College Borough meetings talking about specific problems that occurred that their group went through. And if that was truthful, they were pretty bad. And I'm telling you, I'm just telling you, one reason why it is in here is because of the group that was advocating for tenants and tenant rights. And the Borough State College, the council of the Borough State College, endorsed that. That's one of the reasons, is that not?
Correct. This document has carried through more than
just building safety. And there's other pieces throughout this document that are threads that are not specifically safety related. And this is one of them that's tenants' rights.
Well,
And
but
so,
tennis,
again-
there are tennis rights, and there are legal issues on all part of tennis rights.
But-
And there are landlords that will do that, but that is a legal thing, it has to do with, not with public safety, it has to do with what the tenants and the lease and the property owners or their signees. So I don't know why that's in our public safety code. I understand you probably had a lot of them, but they all everything that's in here is already in a lease I've ever seen. Everything in here is already in those leases. They signed that lease. That is legal binding. We don't need a public safety issue to tell us that, or a code man to come in and say, that's it. I don't see how how a code can enforce that, because it already go to court if there's a problem.
So from our,
Bruce has a copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things we're talking about right now are pertinent more to the borough and other areas, and really don't apply as much to Harris Township. I'd like to focus on just one. It might seem mundane, but when I read our ordinance and I look at the section numbers and stuff, because of things that have been inserted and stuff, they've shifted. And I can dig through it and figure out, okay, now 805 is now 806 and stuff like that. But if we're gonna have a public hearing on it, people that are our residents that are reviewing it, it ought to be more clear to them what is being changed.
well, and what we do is, if you notice, everything that's changed is in red. There's notations behind, and again, I'm going off of the anticipated changes based on my discussions with the manager. Obviously, based on feedback tonight, we would update this, but the changes that are proposed, if you'll notice in any one of the sections, there's brackets behind the section title. Any place there's a bracket, there is notation. The numbers refer to, if you just see a number, that municipality has deleted that section. If you see a number with an A, it means that municipality has altered it, and then you would go back to the appendix. Your draft proposed ordinance was included in the packet. The old ordinance is still in the appendix. We haven't replaced them yet, so you saw what you had before versus today.
And I'm not necessarily placing this on you. I'm just saying that if I'm a resident here, and I got these two documents,
Yes.
my eyes glaze over with this one. And this one here, an appendice that indicates how those shifts have been made, would be useful for our residents to look at it.
Well, and that's what you'll have. That eventually will be the appendix of this,
Okay.
and it'll be with it.
But you understand my?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
So, right, so when you look at the current appendix in the back is your old ordinance. I left that in intentionally so you saw what you did before versus what is currently there.
I look at this thing here and I just like, oh my God. In fact, the first thing I said is, has Frank read this?
He will.
Well, here's the thing I'm hearing from Bud and our guys and Peter and everything. You know, a lot of what you've changed in here with the tenants' rights, and you know, you said you had people come to the borough and the bad actors and all that. Well, I think that's part of the borough. The borough should have an ordinance with all those things in it, and it shouldn't be in here. In Harris Township, if we wanted to do it, we'd make an ordinance. So I'm not sure that, you know, I'm kind of agreeing with the guys. I think we got to have this code, but I think we really we're putting everything under the sun in
I
it.
think
Let's focus on us.
Yeah, so I think what we're going for is we're going to have, I'm not sure we're going to be ready for a hearing on July 10th, but we can do that, you know.
Yeah, we can modify. I think.
When do you have to have this done by?
My opinion is the Assembly Region Code Administration is extending itself beyond what is original.
I agree
But
with that.
original use was public safety, and when we start going, there's a whole book on tenants' rights, and it was written by a local author, a local real estate person. That is the law, and we don't need to jump in on this. Tenants' rights, and there are land owners that do take advantage of it, but there are legal ways to do this, and there's a book, I don't know what the complaints were, whether legitimate complaints or not, I don't know. But we're involving ourselves more than I think we should. We should stick with the basics instead of telling a lease has to say this, you have to allow a lease to do this. That's covered.
We can do that for us.
Yeah, well, we could do that, but I think you're gonna get, I hope you're gonna get back through the whole center region. I don't know if you will or not, but I hope you do. But, and it's just interesting because those two sections you talk about are unenforceable. And why would you get yourself involved in it? Why would you want to be involved in those two things when the legislation, the laws takes care of that?
All right, well,
let's do enough of that.
When do you have to have this back from us?
So we're hoping for an August 1 go live, so that when the students, which is the greatest number of leases, start in August. So our goal is to have this in place for August 1. What I'm hearing from you is you would like 101.6 exempted.
Well,
and the section in chapter 8.
Well, here's what we're gonna need to do. If we're gonna make that kind of a timeline, what I will need back from my colleagues is what you guys want to amend in this, so that we can get it back to center region, because I don't know what how else, because there's things in here
Do you
that,
want to put this on our agenda for Wednesday?
No, we can talk about it.
I wasn't.
well, how much do we have on our agenda
Well,
for
we
it?
just put another one on tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing, though, from you is 101, based on what I know has been amended, 101.6 is the tenant's rights information, and one subsection in chapter 8 has one piece of notification. I'm hearing about those two needing to be exempted beyond what you traditionally had.
What was chapter 8 again? Explain it.
Chapter 8 was the one where we talked about energy bills.
Oh, energy bills, yes, okay.
So if you look specifically at chapter 8, specifically on page 69, and
Jeez,
it's
you must have read this, Walt.
803.3, tenant notification, number 17.
These, we don't we have 400 rental units in Harris Township. Do you know that? Am I right about that?
I believe you're slightly higher, but I don't have the exact
Well,
number.
probably up to 500 now. Mostly single family. Very no students. We have the two Ashworths. We have the I don't know those with Ashworth and Jack's Mills and Huntington. I think what the cost of electricity is irrelevant to those people that live there. So I don't know. Okay.
So you're gonna revise ours or put it in our ordinance that will remove 101.6 and chapter 8 on the energy bills.
Yep, just that 17.
And then our old one will be the same as it was
Correct.
before. Okay, anybody have any objections to that?
Well, we can start at that. Yeah.
The only other thing that's changed in there, and I don't want anybody thinking like we're slipping anywhere, was a recommendation to, up until a number of years ago, you were at 7 days, you went to 30, it's created all kinds of confusion. The recommendation is to please go back to 7 days. It's consistent with State College, consistent with Patton Township.
What was
7 day duration for rental permits.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're keeping with 30.
Could I ask one question? I just want to make sure I understand. Some of those complaints that we talked about came up were things like the heating units wouldn't get up above 55 degrees in the winter and things of that nature. That's covered already elsewhere.
Correct.
Okay. I
Correct.
just wanted
This
to make
was-
sure.
Well, yeah, I would
complaints-
suspect that if they come with specific complaints like
they
the
could
place
do
is
it.
falling down, that's a code violation.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a safety violation.
Where we were getting it, quite honestly, is I would have tenants call me up. The rental owner comes in and basically says to them, you have to maintain the temperature under the code at this level, and they're correct. But to do that, they're, basically running a whole lot of, cost through the unit. And again, I understand what you're saying.
There's no scenario that would okay. You come in there and they say, okay, I'm renting apartment so-and-so. The last 3 months, your rent, your electricity was $100 or $200. And all of a sudden, the roommate cranks the heat up every night and it comes in at $300. Is that a violation?
No.
Well, then why is it in there?
What if it's $1,000?
Yeah, what is $1,000? What are you gonna do?
It's not the cost of them willfully doing it. It's they're not aware of it when they rent. But that's not a problem. I've heard what you want and I'll remove it.
Well, it
Mr.
doesn't
Chairman?
affect us as much as it will in town, that's for
The
sure.
question I would have is, again, some feedback on the duration prior to a rental permit.
30 days.
Again, for a long time, the township was 7. We moved to 30. It's caused confusion.
Why did we move to 30?
Why does it cause confusion?
Why did we move to 30?
Because the short-term rental issue is, we said if you rent it more than 30 days, then you have to have a rental housing permit. And 30 consecutive days, I believe it is.
The problem with that is really all they do is make sure there's a carbon monoxide.
Oh, no, that's not what, that's
carbon
not it.
monoxide, smoke detector are in there when people get in. So if you wait 30 days and someone dies of carbon monoxide, that's not too good. It could be avoided.
Again, short-term rentals for the most part are under 7 or under. You know, so that's why most of the region has been at 7 days. There's actually several municipalities that are down at 1. But I just need some direction as to which way you want going forward.
Well,
Okay, well, Bud, you're
here's-
definitely saying at 30.
well,
What do you guys think?
I like it at 30, number one. We don't have the same issues with short-term rentals that every other municipality seems to have. And they were concerned about the tenant, the owner of a piece of, a homeowner making some money at football weekends to help pay for his mortgage. And that was an issue. Now, I don't know whether 7 days caused more of a problem or less, but we felt that if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna rent it for a football weekend, and if someone comes up here, you wanna rent a room out or a section out, and wanna help pay for your mortgage and help pay for your property taxes, let's not make it a burden on them. And we felt that 30 days would be, if you rent more than 30 consecutive days, that's a rental. There's no doubt about it. Now, if you wanna make it 7 consecutive days, there's probably ways around that too, if they can do that too. But to me, it seems like an extra expense you put on someone that has a home and they want to rent a room out, or they want to do something out for a weekend to help pay for the mortgage, help pay for the electricity, help pay for anything. And I think we wanted to keep that less burdensome as possible.
This ordinance is for public safety, though. And
Well,
public safety
if
means
you
have-
live in
have
that
your-
house and you're not safe to, it's not
Well,
safe
what
for you
if
to
it's
raise
a
your
whole
kids
house
there.
you're renting?
What if it's not safe for you to live there? Why would you worry about? I mean,
What if it's a whole house you're renting? Or you
sometimes you do. Yes.
Okay, let me hear from the other guys.
Okay.
Okay, we know where Bud stands down there. What you guys,
30's fine.
yeah, 30? Nigel?
We've been at 30, that's fine.
Dan, you, the guy beside you.
yeah. I'm
doing
curious,
well
I'm
tonight.
curious to how many people we're talking about that are renting a place out for somewhere between 7 and 30 days. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is short-term rentals for a football weekend, stuff like that. And so I'm not sure it's a big issue to me.
Let's leave it where it's at.
Okay.
All right, anybody have anything else? So you're gonna do the revisions, get it back to us, we're gonna try to have a public hearing on July
We will
10th.
have revisions back to the ordinance and back to the document,
Okay,
and they'll be in the manager's hands by the end of the week.
okay, you got that, Peter? They're not paying attention over there, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you for coming.
I move to approve the voucher transmittal sheet number 2023-4 for the amount of $309,556.64.
Do I have a second?
Yeah.
I have a second. I have a motion to approve the vouchers, and all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I have a question for you on the vouchers that you need to do some research. I had an email from the Spring Creek Water Authority, or whatever, whatever those guys are. Anyway, they said that we did not pay our bill for 2022 and 2021. Spring Creek
Conservation
Water.
type thing? or-
Yeah, the Water Conservancy.
Okay.
Watershed
said we-
Commission.
Yeah, Watershed Commission.
That's
What-
about per
okay.
head, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it says they told me that we didn't pay our bill for 2022, which we should have paid in the fall of 2021. I looked back through the vouchers. I couldn't find anything, but there was a submittal in there for something that was higher than our dues, but I don't know what it was for. So we need to get with,
2021.
yeah, we would have paid it in 2021. It was for 2022.
Okay. We'll
Check
it
with
out.
Dwight and see if not, we're gonna have to get that straightened out with him, whatever we did or
Should
didn't
be
do.
10 cents a head.
Well, the number we had, but it said we
Well,
didn't submit it, so.
Whether we use the old census number or the new number. I'm not sure when they started.
Well, we
that.
paid 2023, so we're current this year, but.
10 cents a resident, Denny?
Correct.
6,070.
All right, moving on. COG committee reports. Executive committee, we met and then we had the general forum on that. We've had 2 executive sessions. One is it's still on the QT. The other one was that we gave approval for the new Park and Rec director. I think I texted Bruce during there to find out if I was in the right direction, so we got that taken care of.
The hire done?
Yes, it was announced. It was on the email the other day.
What is it?
The new hire for the Park and Rec director.
They hired one?
Yeah. Didn't you get your email? You guys need to read your emails.
I read email, I guess so. I didn't see it.
Well, it was announced, what's his name? Eric sent it out, 2 days ago? Was it? I'm thinking. Anyway.
I did not receive
It was the interim lady that got it.
Oh, okay. Just carried it.
Good choice.
Oh,
Okay.
Facilities committee, I'm gonna let Bud talk on that. I didn't go last time. It's a waste of my time to go to the joint
boy.
meetings.
well,
Pell, no, hold on, you're gonna get it when
I
you're done.
know, I know.
Pell meeting, we did, State College, I have not heard anything coming on the Pell. We have a MPO meeting the end of the month. I'll try to get something going there and find out what's going on. MPO, we don't meet till the end of the month. Parks Capital, Bruce.
Once again, has not met.
Okay, keep going. Parks Governance.
Parks Governance, I missed the meeting, but basic thing was Parks Governance Committee agreed to hire a facilitator to try to get things off and get things moving. And she wants to arrange for a retreat to get everybody together.
What are we getting going?
The change in governance, basically, how does the authority, the agency, the Parks Capital, facilities, and finance committee all coordinate. And so hopefully we got that going. I will mention once again that there's only one group that can change the bylaws for the Parks Authority, and that is the Parks Authority.
Thank you.
Park Authority met, approved a cost change from our electrical engineers or electrical suppliers. We're getting close to the end. I saw there's a $40,000 change order for our next meeting. I'm hoping we can bring this thing in on the current budget, but it is getting close, and let's get the damn thing done. That's me.
Okay, public safety, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, we met last month, the day after our township meeting, always comes that way, and we had a very lengthy report about emergency medical services in the region, all the statistics and all the issues and such. The idea of sharing positions between code and fire safety was discussed at that meeting, and I think that was that agenda. And moving right on to HR, which was just last week, the same thing came up with the about the shared position between code and fire safety, i.e. inspectors being available all the time. So there's 24/7 coverage for possible code issues, plus people ready to be on duty for alpha fire calls. And then we had a very lengthy report on the wage and benefit study that the COG has done, and that will be going to the executive committee and then ultimately at some point to the general forum for discussion and possible approval of recommendations from that. I guess that was it.
Okay. Lucy?
Yeah, we met Thursday, June 1, and in addition to what Mr. May shared, we also talked about the solution-based affordable housing study that the county's doing, and looked at a number of topics, market topology, housing gap analysis, lack of diverse housing options, number of workers commuting to the area, and that'll be an ongoing project. Then we talked about the 2024 draft schedule for the draft community engagement survey, which is going to be actually a survey with respect to what people think about various parts of the Center region and life here. So that's it.
You want to go right to solar power purchasing?
We did not meet.
Okay, did not meet. All right. Next, we have Mr. Graham. You last but the best. We
Well-
say the best for last.
Well,
Finance.
I've been in more meetings than I care to enjoy the last 4 or 5 days, but Finance Committee, it was a lot of general philosophical discussions. We did pass it on to, at general forum to, I don't know what this cost is, $4,000 or I think it's $4,000 or $5,000 for this retreat. It's being facilitated by someone from, I don't know where they're from, but they're from out of town, and they have a briefcase, so they're an expert. So it's just a comment about the Finance Committee. We had some philosophical discussions about this, and I may have to become more vocal, but we're a little bit concerned about how the budget discussion goes. My opinion is, my job here is to look at each individual one of our 5 programs we have, plus the 26 budgets, and present them what they need to operate. What do you need to be efficient, the pools, everything else, and say that is worth it, and that's worth it, it's not worth it, we can afford this. Does this make your CFP or not? What we're getting a lot is, we had a very vocal, long speech by one of the township finance persons about how they're having a tough time. They have a tough time trying to decide how many police cars to buy a year, and try to relate that to a COG budget, but it shouldn't be. It's more or less the municipalities trying to run the code budget to fit the code budget to fit their budget, and I don't know that is a good way to go, because we support library, we support all the programs, the swimming pools, the library, we support everything, and we need to make sure that they have money to operate and to grow. So we will keep working on that. I don't know what that long term is going to come on that, but the only motion I remember we passed was the retreat. Huh?
Okay. Do you want to do climate action?
Oh, climate action met today. We are holding off the 26 or how many questions there were, 28 questions. We're going to review that next month. This month we okayed another study for $10,000 to hire a study about the recycling program. We want someone to give us some feedback on it. Like, we don't have enough experience on that. There was another submission of $10,000, but fortunately Shelley said that she can do all that work. But so she did recommend $10,000 to hire another consultant to give us a report on our recycling program. So that's coming in the next month. 25, I think, is when that contract is up, right? So we're slowly getting into it, and it's getting more confusing.
We spend too much money hiring consultants.
Thank you.
To do studies. when we should have professionals in the office that can give us those answers.
You know, I think we're at the point where we have a code officer, Walt Snyder, who is very qualified. We have Parks and Rec people that are there forever. There are fire people. We could probably do studies to better than the studies we get. I've been involved with 3 fire company studies, and I don't know how many other studies. We haven't gotten anything out of it. We haven't really found much out of it. We know that they've told us everything we already know. Yes, they are more. They're away from here. They have a business that's what they do. So I agree with you.
You know, the
But I don't know how to stop it.
You know the definition of a consultant?
He comes with a briefcase, lives more than 100 miles away.
Someone that borrows your watch, tells you what time it is, and charges you $200.
There you go.
Well,
Good idea.
Here's the thing, we hire people, staff, and we read their resumes, and they can walk on water, they do all this stuff. But the first thing out of their mouth is, we gotta do a study. So if we're paying these people and we're paying them that much, I have to agree with you. We do too many studies.
Well,
And then when the study comes in, we got to pay money to do what the study says.
Well,
It's ridiculous.
the problem is most of those studies we don't. When did we do that recycling study? We had one just recently, didn't we? 5 years ago or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and have we implemented anything in that study? We didn't follow the one thing that I thought we should have looked at, but that's beside the point. So we need to look at that. What scares me that they want to spend $125,000 study if we want to have indoor facilities or not.
And it's not in the budget.
Oh,
And it's not
you're
in the
talking about
budget.
the indoor sports
Yeah, the
facility?
indoor sports
Oh, my
facility,
God,
yeah.
we can't afford that.
So this $4,000 for a retreat, it might be a good idea. It's not a study, it's a retreat, but the $10,000 down from $40,000. Thankfully, they said we can do that ourselves, make up the difference.
What are they looking at? Recycling?
It's a recycling program. The contract is up in 2025, and we're leading up. We're taking public input. We're taking. I don't know what they're looking for. We guess we'll see when we get it.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing from Bud and the rest of you is when we sit on these committees, we are the anti-study consultant township.
Yep.
So
Can I ask
come
you
from
about-
that direction.
Did you talk at all about the demonstration organic collection project?
The pilot program.
No, the food waste organic
It's a pilot
demonstration project.
Yes. Well, that's a pilot program. Yes, they have it in place, and I guess an interview is we have an interview. And we'll have a dumpster up there with a lock on it.
The dumpster is going into the maintenance facility.
No, it's going up at Nittany View Park. That's what I just was heard today. Nittany View Park, or Nittany View Park. It's going to go
It's got a
there.
big parking lot,
Yes,
maintenance facility's got
Yes.
a lock gate and a small
yes.
parking lot.
It's going to have a lock gate on it, and everybody will get a code. You can take your mashed potatoes up there.
And you register for it to get the code.
You have to register for it and get the
Right.
code. Yes. They say it's already being used. I'm curious what's going to happen there. I don't know.
Well, they haven't provided a whole lot of information.
No, they're getting it out more. They have not. They're just now getting it their way.
All right.
Heritage Museum.
Heritage Museum.
Oh, the Heritage Museum. We had a meet and greet with our donors, and it was very successful. Yeah, Dan came, and we had some very good, just a good tour. A lot of people that are becoming interested in it. There's a lot more interested right now than there has been probably in years. I think mostly due to a couple of different people that are helping. If I name names, I'm going to lose them all. So Heather Ricker is one, Mike Smith. There's another couple. I'll get on their names. I'll make an announcement. But we are in September. I believe we're going to have a Oktoberfest.
Well, that should have it in October.
No, it's too cold in October.
Frank, I'd like to make a motion, we have a study to talk about adjournment.
Well, how much we're allowed of that? We have a budget amendment.
Okay.
We also have a budget amendment to buy.
Before we adjourn, one thing.
One more thing.
Okay, go ahead, quickly.
We
You've got 10 seconds.
approved a budget amendment to purchase out of our recycling reserve fund, or whatever they want to call it, they kick back to us, to purchase stuff for Whitehall Regional Park, recycle bins and stuff, for about $12,000.
That's the rebate money.
That's part of the rebate money, yes.
Okay, I just have one thing to say before we adjourn. Don't forget Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock here, we got a work session.
And that's this agenda.
Yes,
Right.
that's the other one you got tonight.
Okay.
Okay?
You got that?
Now I'll take the,
Move we adjourn.
so moved.
Frank,
Yes, I got,
make sure you stop.
they're all signed
Please.
except for me. They're
Thank-
sitting right there.
Vouchers and resolution,
They're
thank
already
you.
signed up, buddy. I'm on the ball. Nigel, would you pass them up to me here and I'll put them back in the folder and give them to Peter? Oh, I probably have to sign them, huh? You want to sign for me? Oh,
Just should have a stamp.
I do have one at home, by the way.
You and I need to talk about that 7-day, 30-day thing.